And good Saturday morning. My guest is Terri White, the CEO of the Mental Health Association of Oklahoma. And there was a campaign this week. It was the voters said no, big no to recreational. So you were instrumental in talking about you wanted people to vote no, but there were medical reasons. Not so much into the legal aspect that others were talking about. But let's talk about medical marijuana. 10% of the people who have a card in this state, some doctors say it ought to be far less than that. But now the legislature is talking about fixing the problems with the medical marijuana situation. So you as a mental health professional, long time in this field, talking about the problems with it, what do you want to get done now?
I think that's such a great question. So I think what happened is that the citizens of Oklahoma voted for medical marijuana a few years ago, and they feel like they got duped. And they'd like to see it look more like medical marijuana, and now it's time for the legislature to do that. There's no reason to have dispensaries that have cartoons advertising themselves. There's no reason to have cartoons and child-appealing packaging. Let's look at what some other states have done around medical marijuana that have done it much more successfully than us. Let's define what those medical conditions are for which doctors prescribe medical marijuana. Let's not make it appeal to kids. Let's actually set some age limits. Let's do some things like that.
You talk with leadership, legislative leadership about this. I know John Eccles is here every week, and he's like, every week we talk about how there's something needs to be done. So what's the first big step?
I think that the first big step is saying, let's pull what legislation looks like or the law looks like in the states that have done this well, where they're not seeing a dispensary on every corner. I think people are tired of dispensaries on every corner. And I think in rural Oklahoma, they're scared of the illegal grows. There's a lot of illegal activity happening, and other states have better regulation in place.
Who's a state that we could emulate?
So we actually have 20 states that have done this and done this well. You could look at states similar to ours. The fact that New York has a law that's more protective of their children than Oklahoma is just stunning to me. When we think about East and West Coast states, we tend to wrap our arms around our kids here in the Midwest and really protect them. Let's take what they have in some of those states and our other Midwestern states and put that into our law.
Could we take a moment and talk about kids and marijuana and the development of their brain? I've heard you say that they should not be around this until like mid-20s, and it has a lot to do with brain development.
Absolutely. And just to make sure, I wasn't saying after their mid-20s to be around it. I'm just saying make sure before you're not.
Absolutely not.
Yes, that prefrontal cortex of the brain, that very front part, it's where our judgment, critical thinking, all that is. It's the last part of the brain to develop. Finishes between 18 and 25. Once it's developed, it actually has chemical protectors against addiction. You put addictive substances in your body, including marijuana, which with high content THC is addictive. Make no mistake, the science is super clear on this. You turn on those addiction chemicals. So if you can wait until after the brain is 25 before alcohol, before marijuana, before those substances hit your body, you have a less than 10% chance of developing an addiction. But before that, it's much, much higher. And the younger you are, the more likely it is.
Well, we got about a minute left. For parents that are, a lot of people think back on those movies like Reefer Madness, and they think for many years that anything from authorities about marijuana being bad was nonsense, okay? Yeah. But you hit it on the head, which is this high rate of THC in these manufactured products. So parents need to do what right now?
I would say the most important thing parents can do, and sometimes we don't feel like that as parents of teenagers. I have a teenager myself now. We don't think they listen to us, but they do. The research shows the #1 predictor of whether a child is going to use a substance is what they think their parents will say about it. So talk to your kids about why you want to keep it out of their brains. Having those conversations, not normalizing it, not using in front of them, not making it seem okay, and actually telling them, I don't want you to struggle with addiction, and I don't want you using these substances until your brain is fully developed, can make a huge impact. And sometimes we don't feel like that as parents, but we have that ability.
Okay, so the work starts now.
The work starts now, and I think Oklahoma's ready.
Okay. Terri White, MSW, CEO, Mental Health Association of Oklahoma. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you for everything, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Hot Seat. See this again at news9.com/YourVoteCounts, and follow me on Twitter @MitchelTalks.